Welcome to WooCommerce Live, episode 6 of season 3. I'm Jonathan Wold, and I lead community initiatives here at WooCommerce. And with me, as always, is my co-host, Noëlle Steegs. She's a developer and a volunteer here in the WooCommerce community. Today, we've got another exciting episode. We're going to be talking about e-commerce design. We're going to be offering some guidance on how to think about design and going over some examples of what to do and not to do. We're really excited about that. We also have a special guest who's going to be joining us that we'll introduce in a few minutes. And then, as always, after the episode, we'll open it up for questions. And you can, meanwhile, start to add your questions in the comments section. Noëlle, it's been a busy week. What are some of the wins that we have in the WooCommerce community this week?
Yeah, you say so. Oh, sorry, I hear a bit of an echo on my side.
Oh, it sounds good here.
That's odd. Okay. Yeah, so I got a couple of things I want to share with you guys, and I'll quickly screen share as well. So there was Abe, who asked people to show the best product page designs, and 118 people shared it around this. If you want to see what the community has been up to, or what they feel like is really good design that people should look at, that's a good thread to go to. The next one is from Ben, and Ben was looking to do a customization. He said he needs to add in custom text on the shop page below the image, and one person started a thread here, and it's just such a great example of how different people came together in this one thread, and in the end, I can see like they figured out the solution, and that's just great, So when you ask the community for help and, check the comments and try to provide more information and work through things, that's, when the magic happens. That's really awesome to see.
So good.
And then last but not least, from Michael, who shared this with us in P2, one of the sites that he's most proud of. And I must say, it looks fantastic, like minimal and clean. And it has this a great Trustpilot widget. I'm a big fan of those. Lots of white space. Everything is really clear. I think that is beautiful work.
A great example and a timely one too. That's good for today's episode. Fantastic.
Yes.
Over on the meetups side of things, there's a lot that's been happening, and I wanted to give a special shout out to a new type of meetup that's starting up. So this is the builder meetup. So this is focused on folks who are creating WooCommerce sites for clients. Most of what we do on the show is focused on store owners themselves. And but we also love the other types of meetups that happen. So this is happening. There's an event coming up on March 4th. So if you are building for clients, or if you're just kind of curious about what happens, this is a great meetup that you can attend, and I'm excited to see that happen. Also, I want to give a quick announcement. So the community support team that Anna is sort of putting together is going along really nicely. There's still a few more spots available if you're interested in being a part of the volunteer work that happens behind the scenes. They have a lot of fun, and they do some amazing things. So highly recommend that. You can read more about it here, and you can apply, and that's kicking off soon. So that's super cool. Excellent. Okay, so today's topic is e-commerce design. I think most of us realize that, and we think about design, we know that design matters. Most of us have a sense of it. It can be intimidating, though, if you don't have a background in design, to know, like, where do you start? Where do you focus your energy? And design is something that can have a real impact on the effectiveness of your site, right? Like when there's good design, whether people are conscious of it or not, they're more likely to make purchases. Bad design can lead to poor experiences. So it's a big factor. So Noëlle and I, Noëlle actually has more design experience than me, but we realized for this topic, we wanted to bring in an expert. So we asked our friends over at Codeable if they knew of anyone, and they introduced us to Marcel, who I'm going to bring onto the screen now. Hey, Marcel.
Hey.
Hey.
Thanks for joining us. So Marcel is a freelance designer and developer over at Codeable, previously at iThemes. He specializes in WooCommerce themes and plugins, and Marcel loves making people's lives easier with technology using WordPress. And I think you do some mobile stuff as well, right, Marcel?
That's correct. Yeah.
Awesome. So spends a lot of time thinking about design and UX. He's a WordCamp speaker. And I understand that you also do some photography and music on the side.
That's right. That's correct. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have you join us. Thanks for taking the time out with us today. So we always ask for questions before we start one of these episodes. And Jean asked, it's a great opening question. What are some of the key points for success in e-commerce design? Now, Marcel, I know that there's a lot that we could cover about design. It's a big topic.
Correct.
So we asked you to pick some topics. Some of the things that you came up with were first impressions, branding, making branding the priority. You also brought up this idea of impersonating. Where do you want to start today?
Yeah, maybe let's start by first impressions, because I do think that's the most important one. So when we talk about design, and we are not only talking about having a beautiful logo, we are not only talking about having beautiful colors or beautiful pictures, we're talking about having a consistent presentation of your website, right? So I'm picturing you are an entrepreneur and you have an idea, you have products, or you make your products yourself, and you're starting up and having built your first store online. Yep. And the first impression that you want to give to your clients is very, very important. I do think that it is the most important step for you to make conversions on your website, right? So imagine, for example, I'm sure that you're probably very active on selling products that you have competition on. And what will make people choose your site over other websites, right? So what is the determining factor for people to come to your website? So they're going to be browsing for different stores online that have similar products. And the first impression that they get of your website is super, super important. So imagine perhaps like coming into a restaurant, and you obviously can go to many different restaurants in your city, but you're choosing a particular one because somebody told that restaurant is great, is good. Yep. And when you come there, the first impression is super, super important. It's the first impression that's going to make you stay longer, or even like stay in the website, or in this case, in the restaurant, right? And because in the restaurant, you will have to trust the cook with the food that you eat, and you have the hygiene concerns, etc. It's almost like the same thing on the website. You're going to leave your information behind. Your customers are going to want to stay there and stay safe and do safe purchases. So the first impressions that you give on a website is very, very important. So I would probably talk a little bit about what are the main considerations that you should have to give the first impressions. Okay. And probably the most time that they will spend on your store is really your homepage. So your homepage is key for people to stay in your homepage, as you probably already know. And colors are probably the number one thing that you have to pick. You have to pick an action color. You have to have a secondary color. And you don't need to have 10,000 different colors on your website, right? So you need to keep consistency with the colors. Font type is also something that is super important. It's something that is going to identify your website in the future. So if you mix a lot of font types throughout the website, you're going to not stand out as having a certain characteristic to the homepage. And we're going to talk a little bit about the branding later on. So what else can you do? You sure need to do work with negative spacing. I know that's becoming a trend along a lot of years ago, but it serves its purpose. It allows the information to breathe, for you to concentrate. And the more simple it is to look at your website, the best. So, and you also don't give a lot of elements for people to get distracted. So to keep people hooked to your website, and the first impression is very, very important to that. Also, text. Why do you need a lot of text on the first visit for your customer? I would probably advise you to have 80% pictures and 20% text. Nice. And pictures, not only pictures, maybe white space, maybe some space to breathe, and not have too much text, because people are lazy. They're not going to spend a lot of time, a lot of seconds reading your text. Maybe if they're interested, you have another section explaining your story behind your website. But I do think that it is very important for you to have quality pictures, for you to have no banners, no pop-ups. You probably know this, right? So it's very, very frustrating when you first come to a website and you're looking for a specific product, and then there's this pop-up on the left, the pop-up on the right, the newsletter subscription on top. I don't want to have this kind of experience as my first experience on the website. So that's really, really important for you to pay attention to.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's mainly the main argument. I do think first impression is the number one thing that you have to pay attention to.
Awesome. So you brought some examples. So go ahead and bring those out.
Correct.
Okay. Let's take a look at this first one.
So yeah. So I've brought a couple of examples, and just to be clear at the beginning, we're just analyzing a few elements of this website. We appreciate all the brands and all those online stores that there are out there. I do really love when people go out and build online stores to sell their products and to try to make something good of their idea and try to obviously also have success on their store. We're just here analyzing a couple of elements of good and bad examples that I found throughout so that we can make it a little bit more clear what we're talking about when we talk about first impressions and other elements that we're going to talk about later. So in this example, why I think it fails on the first impression is that it has, for instance, we were talking about pop-ups, right? Exactly this. So now I'm looking for a specific product, and the first thing their site is offering me to spin some random thing here. So I go throughout the website and I see a lot of text. I see images that are not consistent. I see a lot of colors. There's suddenly a video there. There are icons that are not matching what I saw before. And it even has, like you can see at the bottom, it even breaks some links and has a footer that is not consistent. So do you really want to shop on this site? Does it give you the confidence? Does it give you the trust for you to go there? So this site probably has very good products, and it has a good intention behind it, of course, but the first impression is not the best, right? So if we go to the good example for this website, this is another website that sells clothing. And right off the bat, you just see how more pleasant it is to the eye. It is not confusing. It has simpler elements. It has a little bit more space to breathe. It doesn't bombard you with a lot of colors at the beginning. It shows a couple of products. It shows a couple of categories. And it has a better impression at first. It has a concise header, a concise footer, and it makes you want to click on the products and browse a little more on the catalog. I do feel that if you keep your website simple, more towards the white colors and more towards the clear typography, it will give a better impression than just mix up colors and you want to show good taste as well, right? So by not paying attention to how you present your products, your colors, the photography, and etc., all that is very, very important.
That's fantastic. So that's really helpful. So we talked about first impressions. You mentioned branding. Can you tell us a bit about when you talk about branding, what are you referring to? Why is that important?
Sure. So branding is probably what people are going to be most attached to if they like a product, right? So we talked about first impression in coming into a store and you browse their product and you actually buy some of the products and you feel it and you use it and you really like it. So you kind of want to belong to that brand, to that club, to the community that the brand represents, right? So it is very important for you to make that brand stand in your website. It is important that people recognize when they go into a website, oh, this reminds me of, right? Branding is all about this reminds me of. And it is not easy to build a strong brand. It is not easy to be remembered as a brand. So the best way for you to go about it is to have it visible all the time in your website. There must be always an example or an element that brings up your brand, that represents your brand, being it via the product that you're showing or being it via the logo that stands in the header or having the logo shown again in the footer. Whenever you do email communications, if you do any sort of other presentations or you have other informations out there, the logo must always be there. And branding is not only about the logo, it's about the typography that you choose, it's about the photography that you choose. If you have a product and it's a physical product and it has a logo, you have to show the logo with the product itself because people are going to like it, people are going to enjoy it, they want to represent it, they want to have something to do with it. And so we have a good and a bad example as well for this, if you want to pull that up.
Perfect.
So on this website, we see that there's a mention on the header that says the Mama Shop. Right off the bat, I don't think this is a brand because I don't see how the Mama Shop is a brand per se. And then if we scroll down, the first thing that we see is text. And then we see a couple of categories. And then the products that are there, or first of all, they are shaded because they're layering on top of the product, so we don't see the product themselves. And then there's like a little bit of confusion in terms of what colors do they say, what products do they have. There's no branding. The Mama Shop, there is no branding on the products themselves. You don't need to do that now, but if you open the products page and you want to zoom in to see the product, there's no branding there for you to do that. So it's a little bit confusing what means the Mama Shop, what represents the Mama Shop. It's not clear in this first look. If we go to the good example that I've picked up, now this is something completely different. We're talking about a brand.
Sorry, one moment. Let me just, I was so excited to see this one before that I had
DB
up and didn't have the homepage ready. So let's start that again and loading. Go for it, please.
So this was the example that I had for another opportunities. The one we were looking now, or the one that I wanted to show, is called dbjourney.com, if you want to pull that up.
Oh, right. Yes. Thank you. Sometimes I'm over-prepared for it.
That's exactly it. So if we pay attention here, there is a very simple logo at the top. The logo stands for douchebag. There's a story behind this logo, behind this brand. And it has to do with bags. And the whole typography, the products that it represents, the logo, about the lettering, the colors. You don't see any colors besides the colors that are represented in the photos itself. So if you go, for instance, into a bag, there's an example for a bag, the third product on that exactly. You will see that the product is represented with the logo on the front of the product. And by scrolling throughout the whole product page, you can feel that the colors and the text and the products that are shown, they are wanting to have you take a look at the brand, and they represent the brand and all the photography that is follows with all the products. That's exactly what they are doing, and the brand is always present on top left of the website. So
Such a good
example how to keep the branding always present when you build a website like this.
Such a good example.
Yeah, Marcel, I love how you share the positive and the negative examples, to really clarify. I mean, it is all a visual thing after all. On this show, we talk a lot about simplicity, and you touched on that briefly a little bit earlier. What are your thoughts on how simplicity applies to e-commerce design? Why does it matter?
It does matter because it all comes down to conversion, right? And you want to make it easy for people to buy on a website. So you have to make it easy. You have to make it simple. And it's not easy to make it simple. So you have to do something about it. You have to spend more time in making your website easy to browse. How complicated it is on a couple of websites to do sorting, to do filtering. For instance, if you want to just look for a product and you know exactly what you're looking at, and you probably know the brand, and you know a website that has all those brands,
this is the fun part of doing things live. So let's give Marcel a moment. So everyone watching live, we're just going to suspend because simplicity is an important topic. If he doesn't come back to us, we'll just have to talk about simplicity ourselves. And we'll use the examples ourselves. We do talk a lot about it because it is one of those things that of everything that someone can do, there's so many things when you first get started with an e-commerce site in general. It's like, oh, I need a little bit of this. I need a little bit of that. I need something here. I need something there. And it can be very difficult to not keep something simple, right?
Yeah, and also just because a design is simple doesn't mean, how do you say, it's not complex. So there are people who say, like, when you talk about the design of a website, they say, okay, but I just want a simple design, and people sometimes relate that to that it means that it's very quick to design, but often that's not the case. Often a very clean design, like the typography, needs to be on point, you know, the letter spacing, everything, the shades, the hierarchy, the white space, it needs to be on point. Otherwise it just looks off. So really, even a minimal website needs to be really well designed in order to work.
The DB Journey example he brought up, I thought was such a great example. Like it definitely had that simple vibe to it, and yet it was beautiful. The typography was consistent. It went from one to the next, and it just, I don't know, like maybe I'm paying more attention now, but it just feels inviting. It feels like, oh, I'd want to spend some money here. There's this overall sense. And you look at someone like Apple, right? Like the products, they tend to have pretty simple landing pages, but you know that took them a lot of time. Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
and it's also when you want to draw attention to it. Like I love when in Marcel's example as well, where there's like a big header and there's a lot of white space around the button, you know, and it draws your eyes just like that. Hey, Marcel, welcome back.
Hey, I'm sorry, guys. So it seems that the power went down, so I'm just connected through my 4G, and let's hope that everything works this time.
No, we're all good. We've just been talking about simplicity, and I think you've given us some good examples of how that works so far. So you can just pick up where you left off, and then I'll cut over to the examples when you're ready for the simplicity topic, if you're ready.
Yes, of course. All right. So can you guys hear me okay?
You're perfect.
All right, cool. So I was talking about simplicity. I was talking about how you have to make your website convenient to navigate, to sort, to filter. It has to be easy for you to get to the cart. It has to be easy for you to get to the checkout. So you want to redirect people to browse to the products, but you also want to make them easy to go add to the cart and go to the checkout, right? So you have to also have simple copy. We talked about text. You don't have to tell the whole story on the front page, or you don't have to put a huge description of products on the website. And the easiest way for you to do this is to make and have a very simple layout. You don't need to overcomplicate. The add to cart button needs to be at the same place throughout the whole experience. The cart has to be visible throughout the whole experience. You have to know your way around you have to know your way around the shopping cart and on the checkout. Yep. So you don't need to overcomplicate. I see some clients that I have that come back to me and say, hey, I wanted to put this review here and this button here and this logos of all the payments options there, and maybe some of other information. You don't need to overcomplicate. If you do a lot of stuff on a simple product page, it's gonna get very ugly and it's gonna get very overcrowded, and people are gonna just leave. So it is very important for us to keep it very simple, and also keep in mind that people do shop from their mobile devices. I guess the last number that I saw was somewhere around 65%, 70% of the people worldwide do shop through the mobile devices. So they do need to pay attention to that as well. And it's not only to keep it simple on the bigger screen, which is probably easier. It is a more difficult thing to achieve to keep it simple on the smaller screen, right?
Awesome. So let's look at the examples that you brought up here. I'm going to bring the first one onto the screen. Let me just put this real quick here.
All right. So this first example is exactly right off the bat. So I want to take a look at their products, right? And it's making me, the first difficult step to follow is I have to close the banner, right? And then I want to go ahead and see and browse through their homepage and see what they offer. And exactly, I get immediately bombarded with all the products that they have. They don't have any sorting of category. They don't have any kind of way to show me colors or types of shoes or whatever they have. I get immediately shown the products. And if I want to do sorting on the top, there's a couple of options for me to sort and to choose sizes and etc. And if I do that, if I choose different sizes, it will go up. I lose visual context to the filtering and to the products that I'm searching for. That's not a very good experience, and it's not keeping it simple for people to find their product, to find the color, the shoe size, or whatever they're looking here on this website, right?
Yep.
And if we go then to the good example, now this is a site that keeps it really simple. They're selling a couple of products. The products are immediately visible on the banner at the top, but if you scroll a little bit more down, you can see exactly what they sell. They have a simple image there, and they have a little bit of copy, a lot of white space, and they don't have a lot of information on the homepage because they wanted you to get direct to their product. So now if you go back to the product there and click, for instance, on this bottle, you have a very elegant and nice way to show the product. You have the pictures there, and you have everything that you need to get around the website and to know more about this product. So this is a good example how you can keep things simple. The shopping cart is always at the top. The big add to cart button makes it very obvious what you need to do to add a cart. There is an action color. There are subtle colors on this website. So this is a very good example of how to keep it simple.
Perfect. So the next point you also talked about, I think in the same kind of theme, this idea of visual consistency. Can you just tell us quickly what that's about? And then we'll look at those examples.
The visual consistency, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we talked about colors, and it is, I do see a lot of websites that don't maintain the same colors throughout the whole experience. It seems like they've gone with a certain group of colors at the beginning, and then they added this functionality and this feature and the other, and it got all a little bit mixed up. So it is very important that the add to cart button, for instance, has always the same color, the same font type, and the same size, right? This is very important. You want people to add products to their cart. You want to also choose perhaps 2 font types that go along with titles and content and text with your website, and make it consistent throughout the whole experience. Don't add bigger banners or bigger titles, because you want to sell that product more than others, or you want to grab the attention of the visitor with a bigger font. So try to keep it concise. If you have a title of a certain size, use it throughout the whole website. And the presentation of the products themselves, they should be similar to each product that you have on the catalog. You shouldn't be changing the layout of the website when you do browse through different collections or category types of products or etc. And also searching, sorting, filtering, everything needs to be consistent throughout the whole experience. You don't want to change the location where you filter products, where you search for them, and etc. And we have a good and a bad example for that if you want to pull that up now.
Yep. There we go. So this is the negative example.
Exactly. So throughout the whole experience, we see 2 pop-ups already. So there's a chat pop-up and there's another pop-up, and the visual consistency doesn't exist there. There are 2 different types of pop-ups right off the bat. But if we browse through the homepage, we can see a lot of different font types, font sizes. There are different colors. The sections are all over the place. There are small icons, big icons. There is suddenly a change in the background, and there are suddenly dots on the background. So it is not consistent. And if we would go, I don't have much time now, but if we could go through the products, then we would have a different experience throughout the products. This one, the good example, the one that we were showing now, Farfetch. Now this company has, I don't know, thousands and thousands of products of different designers and different brands in there. And they do have a challenge. They want to keep a consistency throughout the whole journey of the website. So in this case, if you can browse by designer, you can browse by brand or by product type or etc. And you are going to see the same exact experience throughout the whole website. It has the same layout for each designer. It has the same layout for the products. Take a look at this. The add to bag in this case, if you scroll a little bit more up, it stays there. It floats while you look through the images. It's not disappearing, but then at a certain time, it disappears. So the whole experience and the consistency that comes with this product page is then also in other product pages. So if you're buying rings or watches or shoes or any other type of products, it is the same experience the whole website through.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, thanks so much for those examples. Jonathan, how do you feel? It feels that we've run out of time because time flies when you're having fun. And I mean, Marcel, you provided so much value and give so much awesome insights to the community. Thank you for that. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. And I'll just ask, because I can extend this another 2 minutes or so. Why don't you tell us, Marcel, you had that last point about impersonating. Can you just tell us what that is in a nutshell, and then I'll do a recap.
Sure. So my last point that I wanted to bring today is for you to impersonate your customer. Now, let's see, you've worked on your first impression, right? And you worked on your branding. I think it is a very good place on your website, and it is represented in your pictures, and you have consistency in your titles and font type and etc. you've made your website simple, you have consistency throughout the whole website. Now that's your view, right? So you are the shop owner, you have a different perspective on your baby, let's call it like that, than other people have. And so it is very important, first of all, for you to impersonate the customer, but you can only go so far, right? So put yourself in the shoes of the customers and go through the experience. Go ahead and let me see how much time I take to buy a certain shoe with a certain color or a certain material in a certain size. And then you go ahead and you do this experience as you were the customer throughout the whole page. But do not keep it for yourself. Try to give your website to another person and say, hey, go ahead and use my website to buy these green shoes that I have there. And take a look on how they behave, how they scroll, what buttons do they click, and what information do they look at, right? And that is very, very important for you to ask for your friends to go ahead and test your website. And that will give you like the confirmation that you either are doing things correctly or you need to fix some things. And by impersonating a customer, you're going to find out there's always space for improvement. Obviously, you don't want to keep improving until you're launching. That's obviously not the case. But you do want to spend a couple of time being in the shoes of your customer just to feel if everything was done correctly and have that feel if all of these points before are really in place.
Fantastic. So we've covered a lot. This has been really helpful. So recapping from my perspective, we talked about the importance of first impressions. The homepage seems to be where that can really be focused in on. You talked about colors, fonts, spacing, having minimal text, and like great photography. And I love the point about branding. I loved how you put it as like branding is this reminds me of, right? Like we want to be having positive reminders for our customers as they're going throughout our sites. Factors in that are the typography, again, the logo, having a good mark there, making use of that in photos, working to keep it simple. And especially I would say in terms of the like customer experience, like how can like pop-ups generally not a good move, right? In terms of that simplicity, having a positive experience, go for that visual consistency. And I love your last point, like look at it through the lens of your customers, watch them when you can, like ask someone to look at it, because it's easy for us as store owners to get too deep into the details. Marcel, that was amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. If folks
so much for the opportunity
about what you're up to, is there a good link that you'd send them to?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Oh, if folks want to learn more about you and kind of what you're up to, like,
Yeah, sure. So my main profile, maybe it is a good idea to search my name and Codeable behind it. So I have there on my profile and the last clients that I've worked with and everything that you need there. And if you want to reach me out, you can find me on Twitter as well, and you can find me anywhere basically with my name associated with WordPress or WooCommerce in this case. Yeah.
Perfect. And what we'll do is we'll include links to your profiles and your Twitter on the show notes. So thank you all for watching, for hanging with us for this. Thank you, Noëlle, as always, and Anna behind the scenes. On the next episode, we're going to be talking about email and e-commerce. You can see that announcement shortly. If you haven't already, you can join the WooCommerce live group on meetup.com to get notifications. Now we're going to jump over to Q&A.